Welcome to How to Build Your Career in Machine Learning, an interactive event that we're hosting for you today at FourthBrain. Backed by Andrew Ng's AI Fund, FourthBrain is here to help you start the next chapter of your career in machine learning. Our cohort-based course community helps you fill knowledge gaps and skills gaps and ensures that every student is part of a team focused on building AI-first products with industry standard tools. As always, let's try to make some connections as we're here together, and we've come together today on YouTube. We've got a global community of over 60,000 ML practitioners, and you never know what connections you might make online today. So let's share a little bit about ourselves and where we're tuning in from in the chat. I'm Greg Loughnane. I'm the head of product and curriculum at FourthBrain, and I live in Dayton, Ohio. Let's shout it out. What do you do? Where are you tuning in from? I saw a few of those in the chat while people were waiting. Very, very cool to see. Let's keep those coming. During our last event, we talked about the lessons that we had learned at FourthBrain over the course of working with hundreds of graduates and alum over the past few years. We shared some strategies and some key tactics that could help you achieve the next level in your machine learning career. Today's event is really focused on redoubling our efforts to help you in light of today's chaotic job market. And we're going to jump this thing off by discussing the elephant in the room first. There is light at the end of the ML tunnel, and that's one of the key takeaways of the day. We're going to talk about how you can gain your competitive advantage after we talk a little bit about the job market and hiring trends. And we're also going to talk about the importance of AI product development. Not product development, not just AI, but AI product development, and why it's so important for you, your career, and for what we are trying to put together at FourthBrain so we can help the industry grow. Today, I'm joined again by James Van, Director of Career Services, and my good friend. So I'm going to pull James up on stage right now. James, welcome. I'm glad to be here with you again, doing another one of these events. I think the first place that we're going to start today, James, is, layoffs. This is the number one thing that's on everyone's mind right now. So if you're tuning in, I'm sure you've seen some things. This week, obviously, Meta, formerly known as Facebook, this is the first major layoff they've ever done. And, we're seeing crazy layoffs at tech companies really all over the place. More than 118,000, according to layoffs.fyi, tech employees have been laid off in 2022. James, do you have anything else to add to this slide here?
Yeah, no, it is what it is. I think that it's on a lot of people's minds. It's certainly, as I'm on LinkedIn every day, there's a lot of chatter, a lot of people helping each other out. We'll do a slightly deeper dive into what that means and how that might impact learning journeys if you're considering, switching careers. But yeah,
it's all over the place. And the good news is that it's not all bad. One of the things that we read this week that was really encouraging, and we think that you should find it really encouraging as well, is that Meta, for example, is also shifting resources to higher priority growth areas like AI. And this, according to CEO Mark Zuckerberg. So, really, we have to sort of differentiate between layoffs proper, just sort of economic downturn focused layoffs, and then the importance of growth within companies isn't going away just because the economy is net going down a little bit. The importance of growth is perhaps even more important than ever to continue to be competitive, because not all is lost, right, James?
Yeah, so I think it's important to sort of sift through some of the noise and zoom in a little bit on a few things. So number one is that we did see a rise in tech job postings in September to October. This is important to note just because I think that there are, fluctuations in what happens. And this is reflected in what I've seen our graduates do, and so in terms of our recent cohorts that have graduated within the last few months and that have been searching for jobs, they are still getting jobs, they're still getting interviews. So there's a lot of activity outside of the noise that we've discussed so far earlier. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, posting to our alumni group saying like, hey, this company's hiring, this company is hiring. And so there's a lot of activity still happening despite the news that's dominating the cycles recently. We also want to take a look at.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we're also highlighting the fact that some departments are being hit harder than others, right, James?
Yeah, so like that big scary number of like 118,000 people, if we zoom in on that, I think sometimes it's difficult to know exactly how many of those people are machine learning engineers and how many of those people are data scientists and how many people are sort of classified as software engineers. Through the research that we've done so far, the percentage of data science category people is right around 5% of those people, and software engineers at 6%. So my takeaway from that is that our particular industry is somewhat less impacted than the rest of the job functions out there. So it's somewhat insular, as can be in this current environment.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason that it's got a little bit of protection is because, engineering as a function really is something that provides a ton of practical value. So this is from atoms to bits. This is everywhere. Engineers are generally pretty resilient to economic downturns as long as companies are still building products. And data science, we've seen it fluctuate over the last few years, the data science boom, and then there were quite a few laid off during COVID. And then now we're starting to see more and more importance put on, taking data science and building data science into data-driven and AI-first products again. So this idea of how do you make engineering and data science sort of come together in a way that's going to be as resilient as possible in the coming years, like these really intersect at, again, products, because, to really break it down and make it really simple, companies have to sell products. That's what they're there to do. They have to sell products, and that means maintaining their existing products and continuing to improve those products. It also means creating new products and selling those. So as long as a company is around, it's selling some sort of product or service. And that's where every single company today is thinking, yes, I have a core product, but how do I build data, and how do I build my data and my competitive advantage into my product? Or how do I create a new product that leverages my data? And this is the new paradigm. This is AI first product development. So this is that intersection of software engineering and data science. These are products that inherently leverage data. And that's how really they deliver value over time. They build, competitive moats for companies. And really, this is the area that every company, as we heard, even Meta, is very much investing in today. What does this mean for you, the learner, the person trying to take their career to the next level? Well, it means that learning how to deliver value through AI first product dev is a huge competitive advantage for you. And this is what we need to keep in mind all the time. Last event, we sort of said, hey, the world is hiring less. We see that, it wasn't quite as extreme with the layoffs then, but we said you have to stand out more. This is more true today than it was just a month and a half ago when we last saw you. So how do you stand out more? Well, this is sort of how we're going to go a little bit deeper today, with this through line of AI first product development. We are going to recall, though, for a second, what we did talk about in that last event. We'll drop the link in the chat to our last event. We're not going to cover this in detail today, but, by using an active job seeking approach, by using a focused and structured learning approach, you can achieve the next step in your career today, despite the big picture general downturn things that are going on. We see it happen all the time with our alumni. We see it happen all the time in industry with our connections on LinkedIn. And we hear from industry, we hear from job hiring managers that they very much need this kind of talent. James, you're hearing this all the time still, right? I mean, this doesn't go away just because of an economic downturn.
No, and I think it actually accentuates our alignment with industry even more because, our curriculum, as I reach out to industry and I talk to hiring managers on a daily basis, they come back to me and tell me that they are looking for people with a broader skill set beyond just machine learning. They're looking for people that are product focused. They're also looking for people with engineering skills that can sort of put it all together. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. They're looking for more within one person, within one individual contributor that they're looking at hiring. And what we're hearing from businesses, what we're seeing from businesses is they're trying to reduce costs. And so you need to remember as the individual that you are the talent in your organization. And what businesses are realizing is that the best way for them to reduce costs is to really help out the talent that exists in their organization to learn these new skills like AI first product development. Because the talent and the interest exists for getting really good at this stuff in most companies. And so if you have a company today, you are working somewhere, this is not a bad route to try to take, is to try to be that person that becomes the AI first product developer in your company. It's also a great way to start introducing yourself to potential companies as the person who's going to be able to have that breadth across machine learning, engineering, and business, which is, in other words, product development. So this gets us to sort of this big idea of what is your competitive advantage? What is your plus one? And I'd like to introduce our instructor, one of my favorite people, Chris Alexia. Chris joined me yesterday on an interactive event demo with deep learning. We had a great time, and he taught us all about GitHub, APIs, containers. If you didn't get a chance to check that out, definitely do. I think we can probably grab the link and get it for you here and throw it in the chat. But Chris, can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen over the past few years, how you've developed your plus one, and how you see this intersection of machine learning, engineering, and business?
Yeah, definitely, Greg. Definitely. So, when I first started, as you can see on the screen, this quote, I was very much, I just wanted to code. I just enjoyed coding. And I thought that was going to be kind of the best way to add value, was to be like the best programmer that I can. And it definitely does add value. It's one of the best ways to add value to your company, but it can't be the only way anymore. And when I first got started, like I said, all about code, was working as a data scientist. Then I thought I'll never worry about this business side of things. But as I've grown in my my time and figured out kind of what path I wanted to take, I realized hey, this business stuff is pretty cool, but more importantly, it adds a lot of value to what you can do. And so I leaned into that to try to improve my career trajectory. Yeah, this is the big one, right? So it's not good enough right now to be just good at machine learning. I think that, what you'll find is there are a lot of people who are good at things like model.fit. You'll find a lot of people who are good at manipulating data. You'll find a lot of people who can kind of understand and go through that process. But the way you can set yourself out the way that you can make yourself different from your competition, which is other applicants in the hiring process, is to be good at 2 jobs, right? So a great example of this is get good at the ML side of things, get good at modeling, get good at new and relevant frameworks, things like PyTorch and TensorFlow. Get good at really understanding data, not just manipulating it, but understanding data. Have proficiency in your notebooks, get good at prototyping actual AI applications, start to finish, which is where the engineering piece comes in, right? That's understanding the ecosystem that exists around machine learning, because that's going to give you such a leg up, right? If you are the person that can take your company from 0 to 1 and you don't need somebody else, that's going to set you apart from somebody who can't, right? Who they need to hire 2 people for. So if you are able to carry through using these kind of traditional engineering skill sets, so like you see on the screen, I won't read them all, but how to develop, version control, GitHub, right? How to API-ify your application. Containerization is absolutely huge, and it works with all cloud platforms. These kinds of things, building what you write into the world, right? Exposing your models to the world is a skill set that employers are really looking for right now. And a lot of people who are really great at ML don't have the ability to do.
Yeah, Chris, you're really speaking to me here, and I think we're really hitting some resonance with the audience. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go straight to some of these audience questions. Thank you. Keep these questions coming in from the chat. We're going to answer them live, but I'm going to keep this slide up right now because we've got a great question from Sam David. Sam says, how much math, statistics, Unix, and Python do I need to know? Chris, what do you think?
So, I have 2 answers to this question. Math and statistics is very important to know in terms of academic understanding of machine learning. It is definitely something that you want to focus on to improve your knowledge and tool set. But I'm going to say that Unix and Python are going to deliver more bang for your buck when it comes to getting into industry, when it comes to delivering value to businesses. Math and statistics help people to build models, but when we're using off the shelf or we're pulling transfer learning models, we're not as focused on those fundamentals. It depends on your industry. If you're in academics, you've got to learn math and statistics. That's the only thing that matters, right? But for these kind of build focused jobs, which is what companies are looking for, they're looking for someone who can create value. Things like Unix and Python are tremendous value adds.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? I just want to kind of point out here on our slide, when we're saying engineering here, we're not saying it explicitly, but we are saying, go ahead and just learn some Python today and, make sure that you can develop using Python. Fast API is a Python centric tool. PyTorch and TensorFlow, these things are done in Python. Jupyter Notebook is a Pythonic tool. And so, we want to start there. And when we have CLI on this slide, we're talking the command line interface, the shell terminal, the thing that actually allows you to talk to deeper levels of your computer. This is Unix and Python are sort of fundamental. So I, can't stress that enough.
And just to jump in there, Greg, Unix is how you communicate with every EC2 instance that you load up. It's how you communicate with every machine that you put on GCP. The reason that Unix and CLI is so important right now is it's how we talk to the things that run our models in the cloud, right? If you have to be proficient at talking to that service so that you're the person who can troubleshoot it. You're the person who can make sure it's working properly, and you don't have to get somebody else to come in and do that job.
Yeah. And, I'm just gonna go, Sam has one quick follow-up. I'm going to stop share here and we're just going to have a discussion. I think he said, do I need to get certified in Python or Unix? Chris, thoughts?
I think it could help for sure. FourthBrain helps showcase that you have those skills after completing our MLE courses, obviously. I do think that it is important to have something that demonstrates that you can do that, whether it be certification or whether it be through, a robust kind of project set that you've done. But you should be able to demonstrate that you have that skill. That is an important piece of the puzzle, even today.
Yeah. Okay. So, James, I want to bring you in. We're getting some interesting questions here. So, I think we've got one question from Amit Lambda or Lamba. What are some best resources to recruit AI first product developers? When you get this sort of question from businesses today, I mean, what's your instinct?
Well, gosh, we've got a lot of people right now, a lot of talented people that I can help direct you to. I think, for the most part, if you are trying to recruit people, I tell job seekers this all the time. I mean, LinkedIn is obviously a great resource. Job boards, it's a little messy. Networking on LinkedIn, various groups, could be interest groups, could be regional. But also just paying attention within, as you hone in on how LinkedIn, the feed, it's sort of an algorithm, right? So the more you focus on that, the more in that community you're going to be in. And there's awful lot of discussion there. But I would say, if you're looking for talent right now, I'd love to help you out.
Yeah. Definitely reach out to James directly, and I think we can potentially help you out there. We certainly get a lot of students. Some are more inclined to be more of product developers, less of software engineers. And so, definitely we see a breadth of talent coming through. It kind of depends, as a learner, if you're coming in, what your interest really ends up being primarily driven by, how you want to spend your day, what sort of things you want to be thinking about. So, as we kind of sift through some of these more questions here, we're getting some really good ones. Kamal asks, does getting AI and ML training mean shifting a career path? Really, I guess, Kamal, we'd probably want to know what your career path is now, but I would say, for me, I'm seeing AI, ML data, infiltrate all career paths. And, I think I'm seeing some nods from James and also from Chris. I mean, you can't really get away with not having some sort of data background, in the 21st century. I mean, what's your answer to career seekers, James, when they're asking about adding AI to their career path?
100% agree with the statement you just made. And I would also add, as a career coach, I think that your career is ever evolving anyways, right? I mean, it's no longer you graduate from college and you stay at the same company for 50 years and get the gold watch at the end at retirement. Your career is always changing and always evolving based on, what's happening in industry, but also people's, focal point changes, right? You kind of, hey, let's admit it, sometimes people get bored, right? Or they see something that is a little more interesting and they continue to add more skills. And I view, people that come in to learn at FourthBrain as part of that process. I don't see it as one and done kind of a thing. I think it's a lifelong process where you're always evolving, always getting better. And frankly, that's what employers are looking for anyway. They're looking for talent, they're looking for skills, but they're also looking for aptitude and that motivation to keep getting better.
Yeah. And Chris, one of the things I've noticed with most software engineers in general is they're always looking to get better. What's the next language? What's the next tool? What's the next layer of abstraction? And so, I mean, is that kind of what naturally led you, with your sort of computer engineering interest and background, into data science, into machine learning? I don't think I've ever asked you this question.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting. It's a very unsatisfying answer. I just really liked ML from the original days of TensorFlow 1. I built a bot that could detect if my friend's bird was on his camera when we were doing video conferencing. So it just was a neat tool. I think I realized very quickly that it was a space that people who were interested in software engineering or from other domains could take very strong use of. And so to me, machine learning is like a scalpel. It's a tool that is wielded by people who have incredible domain expertise. and I really like being in the product flow in that space. Making sure that they know what the best outcome is because of their domain expertise, and then I can make that happen. I can actualize it into software using machine learning, and so that's the crux of it.
Machine learning is a tool, right? And so
Yes.
it's another one of these tools that the world has kind of told all of us, hey, we should probably start picking this up, even if it's in a low code capacity, no code capacity. Data analysis is only getting more and more of a requirement of every job today, from marketing to product to everything else in the company. And so, I want to go a bit tactical here. I think this could go to either one of you, but Chris, let's stick with you. Perhaps Andrea Liao asks, what's the difference between ML engineer and software engineer -ML track? I saw two different positions. We talked about job titles in the last event. We had a pretty fun example that we showed, so definitely check that out. But Chris, what would you say? ML engineer versus software engineer ML track?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that when it comes down to it at the end of the day, if you've ever watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's like the points are made up, and at the end of the day, they're both going to focus in similar camps. The software engineering, though, should focus on core software competencies. So your object-oriented methodologies, things like big O notation, things like how to build and interact with data structures, and then some ML on top of that, versus ML engineer, which is going to be really focused on building models, training models, understanding models, with some of those competencies baked in where they're kind of required. So if I were forced to come down on a side, that's how I'd say it. But for the most part, when you get out into the world, those two words are relatively interchangeable to an employer. Yeah.
And I think last time, James, our big message was like, don't worry so much about the title, the description. You have to have 10 years experience in everything. If you're interested in it, you feel like at the end of the day, what the job function is aiming at is something you would be fascinated to do and you would work really hard at and you would be good at, go ahead and apply. And, so I don't know if you have any additional color there, James,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of frustration with the people that I work with around requirements and job titles. And my main message is, focus a little bit less on the job title and focus more on the intent of the job description. What are they really asking you to do, and align yourself with work and with a company that sort of resonates with you, and focus less on the number of years of experience. And yeah.
So Fauzi asks, James, this one's for you. Meta lays off 11K. So what's going to happen? Are they going to take new graduate jobs? What's going to happen here? People are worried.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I guess I could answer it in a couple of different ways, specific to Meta and also, as an industry as a whole. And I think, with Meta, it remains to be seen. I think that, with Meta, I'll take that one first. We know that they're laying a bunch of people off, and then they're going to double down on focal point and AI, which kind of makes sense if you kind of, read the tea leaves in terms of where they're going. Will they hire new graduates? I'm sure they will. Will it become more difficult to get a job simply because there are more people out there in the industry? Yes. And I think that is sort of aligns with what one of the themes that we're saying here today, which is, in order to be competitive in today's job market, the bar is, constantly being raised, and we're hopeful that people coming out of this program, or if you're studying on your own, the message is essentially it's no longer just sufficient to be a good modeler. And again, what's your +1? How will you add value to teams, is really the message. And so if you're able to do that, yes, companies will definitely be interested.
Yeah, James, we're getting we're getting a great question that, we've gotten often at FourthBrain. And, I think, thank you for asking this, Deepthi D. Please explain why the FourthBrain course is $6,000 when there are so many other wonderful free learning resources. And, this is such a good question. There's so many resources on the internet today that you can learn anything. You can learn anything. And 100%, you can go learn everything that you need to know. So, one of the things that I like to really stress is that, and I talk to students all the time, and I know James does as well. And I know Chris has these discussions when he's teaching students live is, if you're a student that knows exactly what you need to learn and exactly how to get where it is that you're going, then, get after it 100%, like go do it. Because I think one of the things that FourthBrain does is FourthBrain structures your learning for you. And, if you want to take this structure and you want to go study it on your own, take the structure, and we'd love to support you studying it on your own in that way. But I think the real key is that most people that try to go off and study on their own, they go take some video courses, they go, study this or that, but they don't really end up doing the things that are necessary to take their career to the next level. Because we kind of covered it in the last video, you end up dabbling and you don't end up really building. You don't end up really finishing things. You don't really have that deadline each week. You don't have that peer support, that, additional layer of, I'm going to do this. And, I know why, and I'm going to do it with people that are aiming at the same thing. So, there's the community aspect, there's the structuring learning aspect. There's a lot of things that we could recommend that you do, and that we do want to recommend that you do. Whether or not you do these things with FourthBrain is very much up to you. We've got world-class instructors like Chris. We've got amazing career services and career services groups that get together and, join each other's journey. Most of all, one of the things that, we are pretty proud of is fast tracking your career. So, we're seeing some really great numbers coming out of students taking our program with average salaries that are, we're blown away by, quite frankly. So when you say, what's the value prop for 6K, it's hard for us not to, have you compare that 6K to 25K, 30K in additional salary. Or if you're currently unemployed, if you could land that 120, 150K job, how life-changing that would be. And we see students do this all the time. But it's really about, at the end of the day, I think it's if you're ready to fast track your ML career, that's where FourthBrain is really going to help you out. So, I don't know if we want to add any additional color to this, James, on the career services side, but it's such an important question that I want to make sure we address from Deepthi.
I frankly get this very same question actually from hiring managers when I talk to them on a regular basis, and my answer is pretty simple. I don't have any formal polls, but if I bet we did poll all of our students, if not 100%, nearly 100% of our students would say, yeah, I've taken this course, I've taken that course, I've taken Andrew's, Stanford courses, and I feel like I'm kind of treading water. Like, I'm coming to FourthBrain simply because I want you guys to take me to the next level. I have some goal, whether it's I want to be able to do X or I want to get a position in this particular area, and you guys can come and help me achieve that, right? And so that's essentially our student journey. We provide the structure so that hey, what is it that you need to study? Because there is so much content out there. It's a little bit, noisy out there. We talk to industry. Our curriculum is based on what industry tells us. So we know exactly what you need to study and to what depth, and then we help you build something so that you have something to showcase at the end of the day. Because employers, yeah, if you're learning something, that's great. If you built something that you can demonstrate that you can actually do what they're hiring you to do, now that's compelling. And then we also do it in a compressed timeline so that you don't feel like you're, wasting time. That's my answer.
Yeah. And we're getting some similar questions here. A lot of you are asking, and rightly so, in today's environment, about what certification should I get? Should I prioritize a master's program over something like this? We get a ton of former PhD students. We'll get people with 10, 20 years of experience in different industries. AI and ML is, as we discussed earlier, it's that new tool that everybody is going to need to pick up. And so we, as machine learning practitioners in 2022, 2023, we're still very early adopters as AI is now mature. It's creating value for companies, but it's only going to get more and more powerful and useful with time. So would you prioritize a master's program? I have this discussion with potential students all the time. And sometimes the answer is, yes, you should. And you should prioritize a PhD program after that. But it depends exactly what you're aiming at. And I can help you decide exactly what it is you should do if we know exactly what you're aiming at. And what FourthBrain is designed to help you do is to aim at that next step, that next job in industry. This is not an academic thing. This is not something that's going to get you into a research position, although you could kind of force it into that. This is a very specifically designed product to help you achieve that machine learning engineering role and that outcome. And so, we're getting a lot of questions. Anushka, what do you think about the TensorFlow developer certificate? Sam David, where does R, SAS, and MATLAB stand compared to Python? And everybody wants sort of a tool to have them kind of get them where they need to go. And I think this is where we kind of go back to, Chris, your slide that we kind of left off on, which is kind of saying, tools are great, but it's more about being, let's say, end to end, right? Sort of understanding,
Yeah, for sure,
the big picture. Is this kind of where we're going with this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the tools aren't, at the end of the day, what I would recommend focusing on so much. You do have to know them, especially something like Python, which is an incredible tool since so many other tools are built on it. But I would say it's less about understanding the tools, and it's more about understanding where they fit in the end-to-end pipeline, what their function is, and the ability to be flexible in which tool you use for that specific job. So, like, for instance, you don't really need to focus on a specific cloud platform when you're talking about, say, deployment. You need to know that you need to deploy your model. Something has to host your model. Something has to help you track, the metrics of your model, to monitor for drift, all those other fun things that you do after you set your model to the wild. But it's less about the tool, and it's more about what its role is, where its place is in the pipeline.
Right. And Chris, I think this is this idea of having that end-to-end process that you go through, because
Yes.
if you can demonstrate that you've gone through an end-to-end process, this is what's going to allow you to stand out. Now, I want to go to Sam N's question as I bring up this slide, Chris, that I want you to talk a little bit about, which is AI product development. Sam N says, one, if an employer wants one employee to do all of that, why doesn't the employee start his or her own company? Sam, great question. Great question. Maybe they should, right? And we've had students that do that. And in fact, what you're doing when you're doing 1 or 2 or 3 jobs for an employer is you're being an intrapreneur for that company. You're helping them to create new products. Now, there's a lot more that goes into building companies than just creating a product. However, if you get very, very proficient at that, you are on the fast track to be an entrepreneur. 2, does FourthBrain train a good does FourthBrain training provide a good springboard for starting one's own startup? The answer is yes. We did have one of our recent grads do an event with deep learning, who started his own company. Jason did an event with deep learning. He started a company based exactly on his capstone project. We've also had other graduates start. They started companies that didn't necessarily really get off the ground based on their developments as well. So this is something that we see often, but doing this ML project scoping that we can see on this slide, this identifying, planning, and designing, and then quickly prototyping, quickly deploying, and quickly getting things into production. This is what every company needs to do. They need to get lots of shots on goal, and they need to figure out what works, and they need to keep what works and dispense with what doesn't work. And this process of helping them by figuring out what to build, building it, trying it, this is exactly the process of creating value for businesses in 2022, 2023. So, Sam, great question. And, Chris, I think one of the main things that we talk about in AI product development is end to end. And, when I see this slide, I sort of focus on one end is identify what problem you should be solving. The other end is like, hey, I got thousands of users now, and they want it all the time right now. So let's scale it out. Let's use Kubernetes, and let's use some sort of crazy container orchestration built into our cloud computing to scale this thing out. Really, to understand everything, you have to go end to end. But that's not what we're really talking about in the FourthBrain program end to end, is it, Chris? We're really talking about just going there once.
Yeah. So that's the capstone, right? So the capstone helps us to build something that lets you see every phase of this diagram that you see, that lets you have ownership of every phase of this diagram that you see, and that takes you through in a guided way, strategies and tools and methodologies you can use for each of these pips. Right, that's the important part of the capstone, is that it does give you experience at every step of this process, including identify, plan, and design. Right, we want you to take time to figure out, hey, where can this capstone fit into the world? Right, what problem am I solving? What business value can I add with this capstone? And we have a strong focus on that, because you're going to find when you get out into the wild that a lot of people, you'll have an amazing idea. You'll be like, oh, this idea is so good, man. And it's revolutionary. It's going to change the world. And someone will just stop you with a brick wall of, but how do we use it to make money? Right. So it's a knowing the business, how to generate business value with ML is something that we focus on within the course, so that you're able to handle those conversations in a great way.
Yeah, Chris, I couldn't agree with you more. And, one of the things that, I'm always kind of pushing, and this is sort of how the curriculum is very much designed from the front end, is to give new students that are coming in the first 2 to 3 weeks to think about the business value of what it is that they'd like to build. So yes, you can select an industry capstone with us. Yes, you can select a sort of supported, well-scoped project, and you can just build. You can just focus on building. And there certainly are machine learning engineer positions out there like that. But what we're saying in this event is basically that in today's job market, you're better off to be able to scope the project, to not just focus on building, but to actually focus a little bit more on the business context, a little bit more potentially on the engineering side. And so really getting out of the notebook is really what we're talking about here. On the one hand, towards AI product development, on the other hand, towards true software and development operations engineering. So this first few weeks in the course is all about what's the context? How do I figure out a problem that I should solve? How do I figure out what I should build and who I should build it for, and how I'm going to measure success once I build it? And then let me just hurry up and quickly build something that I can start trying with some people. And that's really that ML app prototypes piece that comes in the next section in the first pillar of our curriculum. And, once we get things going, we know what we're building, we know why, we started a prototype, it's working. Oh my God, it's working. The issue is that most of the time these things don't work. And this is what companies have realized, is most of the time these things don't work. We have to build things that work. And if we want to help create value for our companies, we want to help create value for ourselves, we want to build things that work. Once they work, that's where data engineering, big data, ML ops deployments at scale, that's where these things come into play. And so it's really important to, build what is needed, what is going to really move the needle. And it's just getting more and more important all the time in today's market. So let's see. I want to kind of go from here to kind of our high-level recommendations. Again, whether you take FourthBrain or not, this is still what you should do if you want to land that 150, 160K MLE job today. You should learn data and modeling tools. You should make sure that you have Python. You should set up your software development environment. We recently did an event on this. We have lots of open source content available for you to get set up using very professional Silicon Valley grade development environments, VS Code with Unix terminal on whatever operating system that you might be using. Learn version control. That's the event that Chris did yesterday. GitHub. He also showed you how to build an API and use containers. But importantly, and we keep going back to this, choose a business problem to solve. So number 4 here is what our capstone process is going to walk you through and hold you accountable for on a team, an AI product development team. But it's also something that you can do and you should do on your own anyways. Okay, so those are our recommendations for success. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're learning AI first product dev. That means you're learning the data science. You're learning some software engineering. You're learning some business, how to make products, right? Find that +1. Maybe your +1 is engineering. Maybe it's business. Maybe that's going to help you figure out what you should do next. And if you're at a company, start trying to understand that company's business. If you're looking at a company, start trying to understand that company's business. James, if you're in an interview and you can sort of ask insightful questions about the company's business as an engineer, that really sets you apart, doesn't it?
It does. And usually when I'm coaching students, I think sometimes it's the temptation is to get ultra focused on the job descriptions and all the requirements. But at the end of the day, hiring managers have pain points just like everybody else. And I can tell you from the conversations that I'm having, their pain points are people going off and, like Chris was describing, building brilliant models that don't solve any problems. And, that's interesting, but that's a waste of companies' time. At the end of the day, there's just people are building stuff, but it doesn't actually do anything or create any value. And then the number 2 pain point beyond that is like, hey, we have like a bunch of brilliant modelers, but then we have our software engineers come in and they can't understand, the code they've written. So, and that comes into the, just discussion about your +1. So like modeling is great. And what else can you do? So like, how do you understand how all these models fit together? Especially in an age where a lot of people are automating that process anyway. So like like Chris was saying, how does it all fit in together to produce some sort of outcome? Hiring managers love that discussion, and they also love passion, and they love people that really understand themselves and want to get better.
Yes. Chris, this last bullet, this is yours, my man. And so like, tell them about what we mean by build, code, and join a community for support.
Yeah, this is this is huge, guys. So build. You have to build it. I hesitate to use such strong language, but you really can't just leave it in a notebook anymore. When you're looking for projects to fill your portfolio, you have to take it to the next level. You've got to include some kind of, containerization or deployment or something, but you have to build a thing that exists in the world past your notebook. You just got to lock that in. Code. It includes leet code, friends. I'm very sorry. These kinds of things are part of the job. You have to know your data structures. You've got to know some algorithms. They are incredibly useful all the time. Even when you're just in the ML world, you're still going to find a time where you can apply efficiently some of the data structures and other things that leet code requires you to know. So get out there and get grinding, and then join a community. You have to have people that can hold you accountable for what you're doing. The best way to do that is to be part of a community, share your work, open source. FourthBrain's an excellent example, of course. Anything that gets eyes on what you're doing and can let people give you feedback on what you've done it will take you to the next level so fast compared to sitting, with your notebooks on your PC at home, just on your hard drive. It's really important that you're doing these three things and you're doing them with dedication from the start.
Yeah. And, just to sort of really put a fine point on this, this sounds like so much. Learn AI first product development, learn data science, learn software engineering, learn business. We're not saying learn all of these things. And this is what FourthBrain's curriculum is designed to help you do. It's designed to help you learn data science, to help you learn software engineering, to help you learn business, to learn just enough, to learn just the right aspects, to learn just exactly what you need to help land that role. Now, you can't come in without knowing how to code Python. You can't come in without really having ever done anything. But if you have a little bit of coding knowledge and you have a really, I'm ready to come in and I'm ready to get after it. I know I don't know version control yet, but I'm ready to get after it and I'm ready to really get serious about it. I don't know how to do command line yet, but I'm ready to get in and I'm ready to get really serious about it. We've seen some incredible transformations take place with students that came in with the right mindset and really put that dedication first. That's going to allow you to find your +1. We see it all the time, James, in the groups that you have. We help, we see it all the time. People really finding that thing that they are aiming at. They come in, they don't really know. They start looking around. They start looking more, nuanced at other companies. And, and they also, in the groups that you run, James, they're coding. They're in a community. They're working together while they build on capstones with the curriculum. They're finding their +1, they're understanding their company or the company they're looking at a little bit better, and they're coding in their career services groups, right, James?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to a lot of things in life. It's easier to build and do great things if you've got a support system around you. If you've got, accountability buddy, if you've just got buddies around you, people that are you support them, they support you in return. That sort of model of helping other people and being helped is proven time and time again to be a great way to attack problems.
Yeah. And I think building cool stuff with awesome people is what we all want. And really, if you can get this core set of skills, you can be the center point of groups of people building really cool things with awesome groups. And so, that's really what we want for all of you out there, whether you take our program or not. But again, if you're ready to fast track your career, we are here for you. To just tell you a little bit about the upcoming program, this one's going to be offered on Saturdays from 9 to 3 p.m. Pacific. That's 12 to 6 Eastern. Or it's potentially also an option for some of you that might be overseas in GMT time zones. It's a 16-week program. The videos and assignments are going to take you about 10 hours a week on your own. You could obviously spend a lot more time going into the infinite depths of data science, software engineering, and business, but we're going to try to keep you focused on what matters the most. If you have a lot of ramp up to do, you're going to have to work a little bit harder, but roughly 10 hours a week is going to get you there. Remember, you can hit these numbers. These numbers are within your possibility space. If you're here watching this video today, you could land a job in the US making 160K if you bring the right skills to the table. We see it happen every day, and we see lives change. And it's really, it's an incredible part of what we get to do here at FourthBrain. And if you're into the program and you're signed up for this upcoming cohort, we've got a very special announcement to let you know about. I think you probably notice a few of the people on these slides, at least Andrew Ng, the founding member of the AI Fund, and someone that we've worked closely with as FourthBrain has grown over the past few years. You probably noticed Lawrence Moroney from the deep learning specializations. Maybe you've heard of Chip, Ashwarya, and Daliana as well, if you're active on LinkedIn. All of these speakers are going to be coming into FourthBrain to give special exclusive guest lectures within the next few months. So if you decide to sign up for this program, you are going to get exclusive access to these lectures, to be able to ask questions in small, intimate groups of FourthBrain ML practitioners. We could not be more excited to offer this. And if you're still sticking with us today, we're really glad to be able to show you that we are trying to add as much value as we possibly can. This isn't going to get you the job, but it is going to give you lots of fuel to go and get after it. All these people want you to succeed. So how can you join if you're interested in joining? Well, again, have some basic Python experience. The class starts December 3rd. The application deadline, I believe, is coming up. We'll provide that in our follow-up email out to everybody. And essentially, you need to just submit an online application. We need to make sure that you've got some understanding of how to basically work within the notebook a little bit. Ideally, you've got a little bit of sklearn, a little bit of pandas. You can sort of, get by. You don't have to have a ton outside of the notebook, but we want to see a little bit of that data science experience coming in. That's going to allow you to really start off in a strong position. Again, mindset is the biggest thing. We review these very quickly, and you'll be in touch with our admissions staff in no time if you apply. It is $6,000, the cost, and so you can pay up front. You can do monthly installments, and we are still offering payment plans of other sorts as well. So that's it. I want to go back to some questions now. For the last few minutes of the event. I think the one that James is great to potentially end on here is from Tech Notes. With everyone learning and wants to learn ML and AI now, do we think that we'll get into some sort of saturated job market where we just don't need to hire any more AI and ML practitioners?
Yeah, that's a great question. We covered this a little bit in our last session, right? Where it was sort of like more of like a zoom out kind of a macro look at things. And I'm quoting a recent World Economic Forum article in which they stated trends going forward and predictions based on their number crunching. So by 2022, they were saying that 58%, AI ML jobs has increased over 75% over the last 4 years. And they're starting to see a progression where jobs are starting to sort of pass that critical tipping point between like jobs that humans do versus jobs that machines do. And that tipping point is projected to be in 2025, where it's actually more machines are actually doing jobs than what humans used to do. It's 40% humans, 52% machines. 54% of employees need to upskill. Half of companies expect their full-time workforce to shrink in order to expand 25% increased automation, right? So what does this all say? It just means that AI and ML is growing. PwC says that the GDP will be 15 trillion by 2030. So despite, what's happening over the last few months, I think that overall the trend is this is really growing. And so all indicators are that, we're putting out a lot of really good engineers, but these are all people that every company needs to hire.
Yeah. And, I'd like to just sort of end, if I could even magnify the brightness of this note a little bit. I mean, I like to think about it a little bit differently. When we have, consider a few years ago, we had all these data scientists and they were all learning the models. Now, all of a sudden, we're using pre-trained models. Now, all of a sudden, we're using automatic machine learning, auto ML. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of the stuff that they were learning, it's been incorporated into the new machine learning paradigm. So if you're starting out today, you're going to start out very, very differently than you did back then. And so we're working at a new layer of abstraction. Now, these layers of abstraction, whether it's machine learning going into auto machine learning, or whether it's containers going into container orchestration, these layers of abstraction are going to continue to increase. And if you decide that you're going to get after it in your ML career and you're going to keep up with the layers of abstraction along the entire product development lifecycle, then you're not going to have to worry about anything being saturated, whether it's with people or machines that you're able to do, because things are going to change so quickly as we work at the tip of the spear in AI. In order to keep up with the Joneses, we have to keep learning. We have to always be pushing harder than the machines and harder than anybody else that's trying to learn this stuff. So if that's for you, then potentially the FourthBrain machine learning program is as well. And that's what we hope to be able to help ML practitioners with now and in the future. We will grow and evolve with the industry. So thank you all for your great questions. Thank you so much again, James, Chris, for joining us. This brings us to the end of today's event. We really hope that you enjoyed your time with us and that you really took some nuggets out of today that will help you achieve your goals in your journey. We're really grateful for this opportunity to be able to answer questions live for you. We hope to do more events like this in the future. And just so we're really clear, our courses do leverage Git and Unix and Jupyter notebooks and VS Code and Fast API and Docker. And we've recently done some really good events that were sort of live coded with some additional follow-on with deep learning. One of them was to help you set up your development environment. We did that on September 28th. And one of them, just done yesterday, was all about getting comfortable with GitHub and building out new features, pull requests, and getting everything done on the command line. And so if you want to get started, those are great ways to get started. Reach out to Chris at FourthBrain.ai if you have any questions as you're getting started. Again, Chris will be the instructor for the upcoming cohort, which starts on December 3rd. That's it for today. We really look forward to doing this again in the future. If we didn't get to your questions today, our apologies. Feel free to email me directly at greg@fourthbrain.ai or email James directly at james@fourthbrain.ai if you really have a burning question that we didn't get a chance to answer. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep learning.